Hello, welcome to today's lesson on television and cultivation theory. Fake it till you make it. Let's get started. We're going to start out by talking about television and some of the major properties of TV. Television is passive. The structure of TV encourages passive viewing. You don't have to think or make decisions. You can just sit there and let it all wash over you. And that's why we like it. It's also diffuse. It's hard to tell who the exact author is. A particular TV show may have many different authors. In fact, there are often different authors or writers for each episode. This makes it difficult to know their point of view accurately, or what kinds of biases or perspectives they might have. It's also difficult to know exactly what their lived experiences are. TV is also advertisement driven. TV stations sell the audience's attention to advertisers, and companies spend a lot of money on ads and then charge customers more for their products. So you end up paying a lot more for the stuff that you're buying, even though the TV program itself might be free to you. And here is a very important point, TV is not representative. Shows focus on characters' idealized or sensationalized lives. And TV shows don't look like America in demographics. The people who are portrayed on TV often don't represent what real Americans are like, or how they live, or what day-to-day life is like at all. We'll take one that I'm very familiar with. Professors on TV shows almost never have to spend hours a day answering emails, or filling out paperwork, or grading, or actually teaching. Most of them don't do their work at all. Very occasionally, they give a lecture where students sit in rapt attention taking notes. But most of the time in TV shows, professors have a lot of free time. Here are two tweets about TV shows and how they don't fit American life at all. House Hunters episode. Husband: I'm a freelance hamster trainer. Wife: and I tune harmonicas part-time. Husband: our budget is $950,000. Here's another. House Hunters couple: we need an open concept 7 baths. We plan to entertain dozens, and we need a football field for our 9 dogs. Our budget is $38,000. TV is also shallow. Most shows do not have weighty themes or challenging issues. We don't want them to. We want them to be chill. We want to watch them to relax. We want them to wash over us. That is often the point. We watch them for relaxation, for downtime. We don't want to be challenged by our TV. We want to be relaxed by our TV. TV is not meant to be particularly meaningful most of the time. That's not generally what we want our TV for. And so TV tends not to be that. So what? Why do we care? Why does this matter? Well, would you be okay with people in, say, Madagascar judging Americans by how we are in TV shows? If you went to Madagascar tomorrow and they said, oh, you're American. And you said, what? Why? Why would you be, what? What? And they said, yes, I watch American TV. I know how Americans are. Would you be comfortable with people judging you by our TV programming? If people thought we were like our TV shows, Why or why not? Are there some shows that you're more okay with representing you than others? Which ones? And why? Let's think about TV in a slightly different way. Let's talk about the plug-in drug, and particularly the chapter that you read for today. This is a book by Marie Wynn. I had you read chapter 5, which is about research linking TV and violence in children. But first, let's address the title. Is TV a drug? Why do you think Wynn calls TV a drug? The plug-in drug. Now, keep in mind, this is based quite a lot on research from the 1980s and 1990s. This book is quite old. But why do you think Wynn calls TV a drug? What characteristics of TV that we just went over in the last section share properties with people being drugged? Which ones are the same? What are some other properties of drugs that parents might be concerned about affecting their children if TV really is a drug? Maybe altered states of mind, increased violence, lowered states of control, decreased inhibition. And one of the things that parents have been very concerned about is that if children watch violent programming, they will become more violent. I'm sure you've heard the same things about video games. So, in this chapter, what does Wynn say about the link between TV and violence? Does she say that an increase in TV watching leads to an increase in violence? Why does she say that this is the wrong question? What is the bad effect that TV has on children, according to Wynn in this chapter? And why does this bad effect happen? Now, this bad effect isn't directly linked to cultivation theory, but it's indirectly linked to cultivation theory. And it doesn't just happen to children, it also happens to adults. But first, make sure you go take the poll that's linked on our page for today. Okay, so the poll semi-replicates an experiment that was done to find out what happens when people watch a lot of TV. So here's how the experiment worked. They made some poor researchers, probably graduate students, code primetime TV shows for violence, representation of different kinds of groups, etc., for several months. So they just took they video recorded all the TV shows for months and months and months, and then they made researchers sit and watch them and just like write down how much violence was there, what kinds of different kinds of people are there, and what kind of show was it, etc. And this is during the time when you can't watch shows unless they're being shown on TV or you videotaped them, which is hard. So people would have been generally watching these shows pretty consistently. And And they tracked people's TV consumption to see what shows they watched and how much they watched. And then they looked at the differences between the viewpoints of light TV users and heavy TV users. So they gave kind of surveys to people before and after they did this study, and also tracked how much TV they were watching in the meantime to see how much their viewpoint changed before and after. So here are the results. The more people watched TV, the more they believed that they would be, or other people would be, involved in violence. The more they watched TV, the more they were afraid of walking alone at night. The more they watched TV, the more they believe that police are present, and the more they believe that police are violent. The more they watch TV, the more they believe that people aren't trustworthy. Because in TV shows, stuff has to happen. You have to have plot. There has to be some sort of event. Things have to happen. And if you're watching a crime show, crime has to happen. So people who watch a lot of crime shows believe a lot of crime happens. It also happens that mainstream television homogenizes its viewers. When everybody's watching the same 5 shows, everybody's exposed to the same 5 ideas. This happens a lot less now, but for a while there were about 5 channels and they showed the same 5 shows, and everybody watched those 5 shows, and so everybody knew about the same 5 things. And because those 5 channels were competing for the attention of everybody, those shows would avoid being controversial. They would avoid being extreme in politics. They would not do anything that might make a large group of people angry and switch to a different show. So they would stay comfortably in the middle and not be too unusual or different. They would stay pretty normal, pretty moderate, we'll say. And that means that those shows are going to continue to reflect the dominant cultural norms of the society for whoever is in power, for whoever is for whoever is kind of running media companies, is seen as kind of normative. However, people remember negative things more strongly than they remember positive things. And so even when positive things are being shown in shows along with negative things, people are going to remember the negative things more. And so people overestimate the likelihood of violence, even when violence and resolution are both being shown in a show. And this makes sense if you, one time when you're out picking berries, encounter a tiger or a bear, and 9 times don't, you're still going to mostly remember the one time that there was a bear and try to avoid that area. Because, you know, getting eaten by a bear one time is much worse than not getting eaten by a bear 9 times. So you remember that real strongly, because you really don't want to take a chance on getting eaten by a bear any times, really. And so we kind of really strongly remember things that are scary for us. And we have this tricky thing where humans and humanness is built through symbolic interaction, right? We interact with each other and we create our cultures through shared symbols. We've been talking about this throughout the semester so far. And our society or culture is created symbolically. And facts plus interpretation equals meaning. If I just say for, that doesn't mean anything. I have to add some sort of key for you to know what for means, right? We talked about this when we were talking about how to do data vises. And so reality, our human experience, our sensory input is contextual. We have to make meaning of it. And how we make meaning of things it depends on how we interpret it. So when we are making sense of our world, part of what happens with TV is that if we don't have contact with people in a particular group, we will allow TV to fill in that contact for us. So the more people watch TV, the more they stereotype non-mainstream groups. So the elderly, people of color, Latinx people, immigrants, LGBTQI plus people, women, blue-collar workers, police officers, male nurses, etc. The more people watch TV, the more they stereotype groups that they have had little contact with. When people don't have much contact with a group, they more strongly believe that the media portrayal of that group is representative of that group. Why? Because our brains don't like it when we don't have anything. So even if you know that the media portrayal is a stereotype, if you don't have anything else to put there, you will still put the stereotype there. And you may even tag it as the stereotype, but you can't put nothing. And if you have a stereotype to put there, you'll put the stereotype there. You can override that with a new thing if you get some direct contact with people. But if you don't have direct contact with a group, you will put a stereotype there instead. And so the media portrayals of smaller groups of people or non-mainstream groups that people often have little or no contact with can be really, really important, because if they are stereotyped or not representative, those portrayals end up being what a lot of people think that group is like, and what people from that group are like, even when that's not true. And that can be very harmful to people from that group. This also applies to news. The way the news tells the story is often the only story that people know about what has happened. And sometimes that's the only contact people have with a particular group, again. And remember, journalists have to choose which information to share and how to share it and how much to explain about any particular thing or place or people. And sometimes they rely on shortcuts or shorthand to do that. Sometimes they rely on stereotypes. And this can be a problem, again, for a group of people if they're being represented in a way that is not representative. So here's a way that this often happens in our media. Which of these photographs was taken in Nigeria, do you think? Maybe a better way to ask this question is, which of these photographs do you associate with Nigeria based on our typical media coverage of Nigeria? The bottom one, right? Of course, both of these photographs were taken in Nigeria. But we mostly only see photos like the bottom one, not like the top. What do you think this team, also from Nigeria, did? Any guesses? These are international robotics champions. Did you guess that? They beat the United States. They beat Germany. They beat Japan. Are you surprised? Probably because the media images that you have for what happens in this country are not entirely representative. Which doesn't mean that you're a bad person. It means that you have not had a broad experience with people from this country, nor have you had very representative media coverage of this country, right? And so you have a very small amount of contact. I am just illustrating that our media does not a great job of giving us broad examples of the kinds of representation that we maybe should be looking for. All right, so before next class, start tracking your shows or television. I am defining television very loosely to include, Netflix, Hulu, CBS All Access, Disney Plus, etc., 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 but things that are, like less than an hour long. Stuff that would be TV in the past. So begin media tracking shows, begin your Media Fast report, and sign up for a midterm project meeting with me so that we can talk about your midterm project. You probably want to go check out the midterm project before you meet with me about it, because I want to know what you're thinking about doing and talk it through with you. And if you just show up to the meeting not having even looked at the assignment, that's not going to go very well. So go ahead and look at the assignment, sign up for a meeting with me. All the links are on the page for today's class. And you do have a quiz about the material from today, so please also do that. Have a lovely weekend, and I will see you next week. Bye.